Hi all, we're just going to give it one more minute, having everybody joining in right now. We see the attendees really bumping up as we speak, so I'll just give people the opportunity to join the call, and then we'll get started shortly. Good. I don't think I can hold it for further because we have a tight schedule. So on behalf of DSV Air and Sea in Sweden and in Norway, welcome to this particular very urgent webinar concerning the Red Sea crisis that is currently going on. On board with me today, I have Peter Sand, Chief Analyst from Senesa. Peter, just to make sure that everything is working as it should, can you hear me? Oh, he fell out actually. Peter, you need to unmute if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm back now. I just had a few device setting issues.
No worries. Welcome, Peter. And myself, my name is Morten, and I'm the Managing Director for Air and Sea in DSV Air and Sea, both in Norway and in Sweden. Peter, good to have you on board here, and we see that this is a very relevant webinar, no doubt about that. We've seen sign-ups that has just been bumping up rapidly during the recent hours, so no doubt that this will be a relevant topic for the ones or the audience signing up for this particular webinar. It's also nice to see that you've been live on board with the BBC for quite a while in certain or in various instances, but recently also when it came to the issues that we see in the Red Sea. I'm only wondering, two questions. A, is this peak of life with being live on DSV webinar? And secondarily, do you have one shirt or do you have actually three of the same types?
Hopefully I'm not peaking yet, but it's definitely a huge pleasure being on the DSV webinar this morning, talking on such a relevant topic. And I must say, you probably caught me at a very, very long day with no time to change shirts in between. But in short, Morten, I think you hit the nail right on its head, calling this "What on earth is going on?" Because in essence, the solution to the current problems are found not on water, but on the soil next to the Red Sea. And that's probably why this won't go away tomorrow, but will be something that we need to endure for not only weeks, but most likely also a month.
Good, and we'll tap into that particular subject today with this particular webinar. Amongst Peter and I, we also have some true superstars internally from DSV. We have Preben, who's the director for sea freight in Norway. We also have 2 times Christopher from DSV Air and Sea in Sweden, covering respectively the sea freight, but also air freight actually, as this might gonna be a relevant topic of discussion or even combinational products whatsoever to have your supply chain flowing overall. Guys, can you hear me just to make sure that everything is working accordingly?
Loud and clear, Morten.
Loud and clear. Very good, and welcome on board to you guys too. The only thing that I can say is that we look like a only being white males here. We look like a boy band, which we have usually done, but rest assured, we're gonna make it interesting and presentational anyhow overall. When it comes to the coordination, I will speak in English, and Peter will do the same because we have our native tongue is Danish, and we a vast majority of the participants today either come from Sweden or from Norway. However, I will allow Christopher and Preben to speak in native tongues of Norwegian and Swedish. So overall, let's break it what's going on right now, and I'll just facilitate here. Guys, chip in, please. And also, we have a Q&A section as well. So we've received a bunch of questions prior to this particular webinar, but also if questions arise for the participants, just bump them in. We'll try to cover them as fast as possible. But what's going on right now? We've touched upon this in our recent webinar that we had mid-December together with Seneta. That was with Patrick Backlund, the CEO, Peter's colleague. And what we usually see here right now in the market is that the market is becoming more disrupted overall and on a global scale. We have the war ongoing in Ukraine. We have the tensions are rising between China and Taiwan and the West. We have trade wars going on, also moving focus onwards from offshoring to onshoring, or at least nearshoring. And then, as we addressed in the final chapter of our recent webinar, we now have the war ongoing in Gaza. And this is certainly putting a change to the markets that we operate within, whether you are a freight forwarder or carrier, or whether you are a shipper moving cargo from one country to another. And if we just tap into what is going on, and Peter, just chip in, because you're probably more an expert on this compared to me. But we saw the war in Gaza breaking out, after the attacks in Israel, and that has just basically led to very, very big tensions in the wider area of the Middle East, where we have recently seen here back in December, Houthi forces based out of Yemen, but also supported by the Iranian state, that they have started to attack various freighters. And Peter, have they been usually or primarily container ships, right?
It seems as if container ships are feeling the brunt of this aggression, and it seems to be a way of honing home the support to the Hamas forces on the West Bank, right, and in and around Israel. So what I think I mentioned a number of times in the most recent years to watch out for every time we talk about the future is the disruption coming from geopolitics. Morten, you mentioned some of the, say, more practical aspects of, making supply chains more resilient, bringing production into different areas, home shoring, reshoring, friendshoring, something like that. But in the end, when geopolitics show their ugly face like they do in a situation like this, everyone is at risk, everyone is taken hostage. But it seems as if the aggression is very much related to container shipping, and that's why we, at least on an estimated basis, have around, every 4 in 5 ships that used to go through the Red Sea, container ships, are now rerouted, unless you call a port in Red Sea and you are, affiliated to something which is not Israel related. So it's massive, it's dramatic, and you probably know this already, but rates have doubled, of course. You see that into Med and North Europe.
Yeah, and we see that tensions are rising even further now. We have an Iranian destroyer that has sailed into the Red Sea, and we've also seen recently a drone attack on the Hamas leader in Beirut in Lebanon, involving a new country to this. So tensions are really, really arising, and I've inserted here the picture of a hot steaming kettle, that this is a kettle that is really rising here. Not to forget, and this is important here for the audience too, what is actually coming up quite soon affecting the markets overall, the Chinese New Year, which has been something that we are quite familiar with. I believe, when we talk about the global logistical market, China will basically close down for a week. And what we've seen in the recent years is that, the period leading up to the Chinese New Year is quite intense when it comes to production as well as transportation and logistics. Not to forget, we also have a certain issue with the Panama Canal linked up to El Nino, right? Where we also see that the capacity for the Panama Canal is also having a certain impact on the global markets. So ships are also rerouted, not through the Panama Canal, however, south of Latin America. So here again, this is basically leading to somewhat an impact. And what will this basically mean? And Peter, again, Chris and Preben also chip in, please. But basically rerouting, and this is a snip from marine traffic, right? That you said that already now, Peter, that we are rerouting container ships rather than going through Suez. We are now rerouting through or south of Cap de Horn, right? And this is a snip from marine traffic. We see a vast amount of cargo boats here. In particular, quite many more than what we are used to. But basically, Peter, maybe chip in on what does this basically mean?
If I can just connect some of the dots that you mentioned in relation to Panama, because that is, of course, a disaster, a slow-burning disaster. We have seen that for more than half a year now, and that's another. We expect troubles in Panama to last for another half a year and then some probably. But we've definitely seen reroutings taking place. Also, Yang Ming went out late November, for instance, rerouting 3 services that goes via Panama Canal from Far East to US East Coast to the Suez Canal. What they are doing right now is, at least to my extent, unknown, but Hapag-Lloyd, we did see them also reroute away from Panama, but they are basically bringing them back to Panama Canal right now. So it's super duper flexible, not only for you guys as shippers and freight forwarders, but certainly also for the carriers trying to optimize this global network of theirs in order to just have services running and just ensuring that goods eventually will get to their final destination with some specific and extensive delay, as you rightly point out on this slide also, Morten, 2 weeks at least, and it's something that we can only look with in terms of, did you make your contingency plans well in advance? Obviously, you shouldn't pay or put a huge probability to a closure of the Suez Canal, but you should always have that as an opportunity, say, or a threat, I would say, that you can bring out. Okay, what do we actually do during times like this? Not only in times like, okay, we have Chinese Lunar New Year coming up at 10 February, and this is normally the mini peak of container shipping, so it really comes at a bad time, right? So tons of uncertainty, and of course that's when you really know who to work with in logistics when shit hits the fan like this.
Hedin and Preben, any particular comments that you want to raise here when it comes to lead times or transit times that will occur?
Ja, det vi ser nu, det är ju förändringarna som är i dagsläget. Vi ser ju också att rederierna ändrar om väldigt mycket i sina slingor, exempelvis från Europa till Middle East. Nu väljer vissa att köra från Europa till Fjärran Östern för att sen transhippa i Fjärran Östern till båtar till Middle East. Så transittiderna kommer även framgent förändras mycket beroende på vilken trad vi tittar på.
Ja. Yeah. But med dig, Preben, what about you? If we talk about, transit times being extended, but what about the ripple effect, the later effects on port operations once these ships arrive? Do they arrive, on pearls like on a string, or, will we have later disruptions in the ports like in Northern Europe or in Far East Asia, as an example? We're talking global ports here, obviously.
Sånn som vi ser det ut nå, så vil vel den første congestion eller utfordring på havnene mest sannsynlig komme i Asia. Og da snakker vi om de store havnene i Asia. Shanghai, Ningbo etc. Yantian. Det vil også være det at rederiene kutter ut en del av disse mainportene som de har, Qingdao for eksempel, altså fidrer dette ned til for eksempelvis Shanghai for å kutte ned transittiden på de store båtene som skal gå. Og dette vil jo skape en congestion, eller en kø på havnene da. Og når båtene ikke kommer tilbake fra Europa til riktig tid, så vil det si at vi har lack of equipment, eller mangel på kapasitet og utstyr. Dette var noe som vi så stort under, vi kaller det covid-tiden da, så skal ikke vi sammenligne det 100% likt med covid, men vi vil nok se at det vil bli et større press på å få tak i nok utstyr, og få press på nok plass på båtene. For volumet har ikke gått så mye ned som vi gjerne har sett i media. Båtene har fortsatt vært OK fulle, selv om det har vært litt blank sailings. Så vi vil se en utfordring spesielt på dette. Så får vi se hvordan det blir håndtert på europeiske havner da, om vi får en congestion der, og det kan kanskje komme også.
Og du bringer mig, sorry, and you're leading this up to this particular slide that we're coming to now. How does the transit times affect the global capacity? Because yes, we have had a surplus, a minor surplus when it comes to capacity. Recently, a lot of boats have been implemented because of boats have been ordered, or ships have been ordered by the container carriers. But still, there's been quite big flows going on between the various continents on a trade level basics. But how does the transit times or the extended transit times affect the global capacity? Well, if we look at a usual big trade flow like Far East Asia to Europe and then backwards again, export, import, the ships operate like a bus, like pearls on a string, basically. And if we look at a round trip for a certain container on an annual basis, 12 months, usually a container goes back and forth 6 times a year on a certain trade through Suez. However, once the trade becomes bigger or longer, you need more vessels to accommodate that, and the round trips per container will basically reduce. We assume down to best guesstimate down to 4 round trips a year. So in order to safeguard the same capacity output for this particular trade here, you would need to deploy more capacity. And that capacity is not lying idle. It's not something that is necessarily available. We don't necessarily have these empty ships whatsoever. So we would need to deploy them from other routes, and that would then have a ripple effect, a later effect on other trades overall. Peter, maybe you have interesting comment to mention here.
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways to look at this. You present a few numbers here. We obviously did say same but different way of measuring the need for added capacity if a key trade like the one you show here, Far East to North Europe, were to go 100% round the Cape of Good Hope. We have, give or take right now, 17 weekly departures from all, say, carriers and alliances out of Asia on that trade lane. The average service is run with 14 ships, and with the added extra time of 10 days, we could see 3 more ships at an average capacity of 20,000 containers on board being added into just this Far East to Europe trade lane. That's, in rough terms, 1 million TEUs that needs to be found somewhere else. Morten, you point to the fact that they are not necessarily idle, all of them. I can say that half of them may be idle. I can also add that carriers have never deployed services at this low speed. Only in the third quarter of 2023, we saw a new record low average speed on all global services. So there is capacity around to service something like this. It's just a little bit a question, of course, how would you like to do it? I mean, carriers are definitely honing their skills in capacity management. They tested the Pacific, especially in 2023, and I think they also showed that it was possible, even in a year where congestion was coming down globally, where demand grew only by an inch, and where more than 2 million TEUs of new build capacity were fed into the market. They still managed to extract capacity on Transpac and lift spot rates. So I would say it is possible if you want to, but obviously it all comes at a cost. And the knock-on effect, as you mentioned also, Morten, this has ripple effect to many other trades, not only the ones that are specifically impacted by this. Far East to US East Coast up by 25% also since mid-December. We see also Far East to South America, East Coast, for instance, a trade that is not at all directed or impacted by any disruptions related to Red Sea and Suez Canal as such, nor the Panama Canal, but that trade is up significantly too. So definitely a boon also for those added effects if you want high rates. If you hate to see high rates, obviously this is the ugly face of the ripple effects that you see from global networks
I can
being
confirm,
at risk.
Yeah, I can confirm here from the DSV point of view that we have already started to see potential carriers to deploy, certain surcharges and rate increases on other trades, not even affected by this particular Red Sea area. So whether it's ripple effects or carriers, being positive or creative in terms of bumping up their revenue, that's difficult to say. I might gonna choose the latter, but nevertheless, we can confirm from DSV that we have seen some indications that is already starting now. What is it like 1 month into this situation here? So capacity overall, either you have a seller's market or you have a buyer's market, and we're moving onwards to the seller's market. We probably all remember the Ever Given back during the COVID times. Here on the left side, we see Xeneta's index when it comes to Far East Asia and then to Europe on rate levels. And what we basically saw was that prices started to increase, firstly through the stimulation packages that was offered by various states, low interest rates, people sitting back home with screaming kids in the background, ordering interior and whatnot. And then later on, we saw back in 2021 that the Ever Given got stuck, and I think that this was for approximately 6 days, affecting 400 vessels in the queue, and that actually ramped up the rates as well quite a lot. So we were talking about a 2-stage price increase that actually occurred in the market overall. And I'm not gonna conclude too much here, but that was at least what the rate index indicated overall. And what we see here on another graphic here, this is the Shanghai Container Freight Index, similar to Xeneta's. What we've already seen now is that it's starting to bump up when it comes to Northern Europe and Mediterranean as well. When it comes to, and this is just an example, main ports out of Far East Asia. And we believe that prices might gonna hit up quite a lot. Last Friday, we saw the biggest increase on a weekly basis on the Shanghai Container Freight Index. It was a 4-digit US dollars increase, and we expect it also to increase during the week to come. Hedin, any comments in relation to this?
Nej, vi ser ju samma mönster idag som vi gjorde nu tog det ju covid-tiden här och Ever Given, och det här är ju bara ett exempel. Det här gäller ju andra trader som du och Peter också varit inne på, exporttrader, andra importtrader och så vidare. Kedjereaktionen här inom branschen.
Ja. Preben?
En kjapt spørsmål her til alle egentlig. Hva gjør vi egentlig tenker på eksporten? Vi jo i Norge og Sverige, som vi sitter med nå, jo outports. Vi vil jo bli berørt på en måte der, på grunn av rederiene ønsker å snu containerne sånn fortest mulig. Så her jo det også viktig at vi litt på ballen på eksporten, og ser på hvordan vi kan løse det best mulig. Jeg vet ikke om du, Hedin, har noen kommentarer spesielt for det, så Sverige har jo mye eksport ut.
Ja, om jag fattar frågan rätt här, Preben, min norska är inte så bra. Men du tänker på containersituationen eller?
Ja, på eksportsiden. Hva vil skje fremoverrettet på eksportsiden fra outports som Norge och Sverige?
Precis, vi kommer ju se effekten här att det är containerbrist, och när rederierna ska välja och köra upp empty equipment till exempelvis Sverige som är ett tungt exportland, kommer man göra det från exempelvis Hamburg, Rotterdam, Antwerpen som exempel? Nja, det kommer man nog inte göra. Man kommer prioritera bashamn, så vi kommer se en risk här för att det blir containerbrist till och från. Framförallt nu antagligen efter kinesiska nyåret. Sen kanske det fyller på lite, men containerbrist kommer vi se om det här fortsätter. Outport, Sverige, export.
Got it. Tack.
Morten, if I may add just a little bit, if you can flip the slide back, I can let you know that the direction, of course, is quite clear. We already have 4,000 on the Shanghai to Mediterranean trade lane, right? And Europe is also right around 3,200, 3,300 on the market average spot rate right now as we speak. But you also mentioned Ever Given. Let me just briefly sum up. This situation may have similarities, but more so it has striking differences, right? Because with the Ever Given getting stuck, everybody knew that at some point in time this ship will refloat and we can once again transit through the Suez Canal. That was in, say, inverted commas, easy peasy. When we look at the solution that is required for the Red Sea crisis right now, it's much different. It's nothing you can do with a little bit of digging in the sand and some dredges. You need multiple warships. You probably also need ground forces. So that's why you see similarities in effects of capacity. You see a similarity in the effect of say, equipment that goes back to the COVID years with the relocation or dislocation of equipment. But in essence, I mean, you still see the one thing that is relevant here also: cost going up, rates going up, prices going up, and disruptions. But I think it's very important to hone in on the fact that Ever Given was at least opening up in 1 week. The situation with Red Sea right now is not going to get away next week. We should have more patience, and everyone is in the need of that throughout the supply chain stakeholders, I think.
Peter, one question here, it might even going to be two. What rate levels do you believe that we will see for the next 3 to 6 months when it comes to the trade corridors, you know, directly affected by the situation in the Red Sea? Are we now, you know, at a level which will develop even further, or, you know, will it stabilize on an elevated level, or, you know, what do you feel from your point of view?
I don't feel anything. No, get me right. I try to stack up the pros and cons and the dynamics behind, and look at what are the likely effects on the market in the immediate aftermath of the dramatic weekend, 16-17 December. We went out saying that rates can probably double. We are at that level now. I'm telling you right now that we could probably also see a doubling from the current rates before we see the steam coming out of the market just a little bit, because the uncertainty is still thick. We still have attacks only 2 days ago, not hitting a container ship from CMA, but still rockets being fired. So there is no solution yet. So things will most likely get worse before they get better. We have Chinese Lunar New Year coming up, of course, that's another thing. But then again, of course, we also need to look beyond. I think it's fair to say that, I mean, some of you may have been reading also through our 2024 Outlook. We published that a few months back, and that gives, of course, the idea of where would markets be if disruptions like this didn't occur. Right. So at some point in time, there will be the mean reverting effect with overcapacity still showing its face, bringing down rates to where they would be in a situation that is not affected by this. So rates will also gradually come down once we see this solution to the problem that we're facing right now. But just say summarizing here, once we get the solution. I don't think that we will see 100% instant rerouting back to Suez from all services, right? So we will see a delay also when rates start to come down and more services get back to the Suez Canal. So you should not expect a fall from the cliff from one day to the next, simply due to the nature of this crisis. Hopefully that gives a little bit of direction and at least into what we expect short and medium term.
But coming to prices, Peter, here, prices consist basically of short-term rates and medium-term or long-term rates. What about these long-term contracted rates? Will they stay fixed? Will we see uplift as carriers actually obtaining or living up to these contracts, but adding somewhat a surcharge? What is your best guess on this particular matter?
This will be another testing time for relationships between shippers, freight forwarders, and carriers. A relationship that have been strained at large for multiple years now. So I guess, I mean, during the crisis that we see right now, those shippers and perhaps also forwarders, perhaps getting burned from the carriers during the COVID years and wanted to get back at them in 2023. Well, apparently the tables have turned once again. Right. So I think this proves the point that be nice to people on the way up and be nice to people because you will meet them on the way up again. Right.
Yeah.
But surely we are also talking to a lot of our customers and they are obviously questioning and also thinking out loud. No carrier, no forwarder will honor contracts signed coming into force in November or December or early January now at a level which is half where you see spot rates right now. We've seen some carriers going out, say, invoking various clauses, saying that, of course, during times like this, we are given the opportunity not only to reroute in order to secure the safety of the crew and cargo and ship, of course, but also to pass on some of that extra cost. So I think this is definitely testing times. We will, of course, see the ugly face of someone just saying no to even say in due time nominated cargoes. I'm sure, as we always do. But this is definitely another test of the relationships. Are you working with the right partner in logistics? Or are you not?
Well, from my point of view, I believe that we will see uplift, but it will be based on certain surcharges being deployed. We currently see peak season surcharge. Whether that would be the right one to define it as, I'm not too sure. But certainly there are tensions on the trade, and there are also costs associated with that. Having a big container vessel going around Cap de Horn comes with an additional cost, one way of $1 million, and I'm quite sure that if you have to pass through Suez with warships around you protecting you for good reasons, that's not cheap neither. Peter, do you even know? We have a question here. What is the actual entry cost through the Suez? Do you know that?
Well, for a container ship, a one-way ticket would often set you back around $700,000 to $800,000. So regardless of the fact that we see added fuel cost going around to the extent of $1 million, of course there is a little bit of saving in transit fees, of course that you can take out of the equation, right? So it's expensive either way, but Morten, perhaps I can allow myself to ask you a question also, because these long-term rates, of course, are close to the heart of our shipper friends, right?
Yeah.
And they have probably also been doing some contracting with you guys, and you're also the middleman in between the carriers. So what kind of how do you react to a situation like this in terms of contracts agreed before? Are you pushing on the surcharges that carriers just request, or let me know a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, fair and honest question with a fair and honest reply. As a broker, we sit in the middle between the shipper and the carrier, so we will pass onwards the cost. And as a freight forwarder, we add a fee for doing the transportation or administering embracing the transportation. I believe that there will be uplift on long-term contracts, but it will be safeguarded by paying a certain fee, whether it's a wharfage fee or whether it's a PSS or added bunker and whatnot. but that will somewhat being the guidance in order to safeguard that there is actually operation on your cargo. And as a freight forwarder, we will forward the cost. We can't take it. We can't take the loss whatsoever. That is our level of existence one way or the other. But it's a fair question, no doubt about it. And we'll touch upon this. So what is how will this actually affect shippers? Shippers is basically the audience of today's webinar. And I can only, I've put on this pretty direct picture here, put on the happy face. One way or the other, we would need to live with this. And I've categorized 4 particular areas that we want to chip in on when it comes to how you guys will be affected. If we talk about rates, we see them now, they are going up. Peter has already touched upon this. We see a double on one particular trade corridor. It might gonna double again, so going maybe up to 8,000 if at worst potentially, and we might gonna see that other trades gonna be exposed later by having this capacity being moved around. Our best suggestion to you guys listening and viewing in: don't sit on the face and wait. Sit on the fence and wait for too long. We believe this will continue for quite a while. As you said again, Peter, Ever Given was stocked for what, 6 days or so. This is certainly not a hurdle that is solved from one day to another. I even believe that Israel has been saying to media that they will continue the war in Gaza for quite a while, equaling that the tensions in the Middle East might gonna stay elevated for a while. So that is our conclusion on rate levels. Capacity, it will become tight, no doubt about it. Especially up towards Chinese New Year's, we've seen, and we've had issues with that as well. Actually getting uplift, just in January, that has been somewhat a hurdle. Is certainly if we expect lower rates. So our suggestion is, really stay close to your freight forwarders, or if you are in direct contact with your carrier, ensure you have that access to capacity. Capacity is becoming king. If I should use an expression that is quite common in this market. And transit times, no doubt about it, they will be heavily affected. So account for this extended supply chain. You will be exposed on this, so you would need to cover that for your upcoming contingency plan overall. And also we will tap in on this on the later part of the presentation, but also consider alternative solutions when it comes to potential time sensitive cargo that needs to be moved. It can be done either with air freight or combinational products, one way or the other. And then lastly, it's not COVID, or it's not the same situation that we experienced in COVID. It has similarities, but also there are differences. We are not saying that you should panic, but you shouldn't certainly not take this lightly neither, because this is overall becoming a big issue that will affect other trade corridors in the time to come. Preben, any comments whatsoever from your point of view when it comes to these certain areas of discussion?
Her er jeg helt enig med deg, Morten, at dette er viktig at vi tenker på. Det jeg også vil bare pinpointe, så er blitt en case gjerne har gått litt under radaren. Det er hvis vi skal kunne gå gjennom Suez eller Rødehavet igjen. Tenk på forsikringen deres hvis båten eventuelt blir truffet angående felleshaveri. Det er en liten sånn ting som gjerne blir glemt oppi alt dette, for gjerne sier ja, vi vil gjerne gå gjennom Suez igjen. Da er vi inne i en krigszone, kan du gjerne si, eller et high risk area, og dobbeltsjekk på forsikringen at det er i orden. Ellers er jeg helt enig med det du setter her og sier, Morten.
Takk. Hedin, any comments from you?
Enig. Equipment också king, Mårten. Men jag sa det tidigare, under covid pratade jag alltid om pay and play and pray, och nu är det lite pay and play situation vi har.
Ja.
Så får vi se om det blir pray också.
Yeah. Okay. But I assume that we can conclude here, and also as a suggestion to the viewers and audience, take decisions today. Don't shy away from paying a bigger premium when it comes to the rates. Obviously, DSV will be there to ensure that you can get tickets to the stadium of the important football match, but you shouldn't pay for too high tickets or too expensive tickets either. It has to be competitive, given the market that we sit in and experience today. No doubt about that.
Kjapp kommentar, Morten, inn der også. Det er kanskje også viktig at ikke sitte på gjerdet, som vi sier nå, at ratene blir ikke noe billigere fremover. At det kan kanskje være lønnsomt å få løftet gods nå I stedet for å vente over en lengre periode. Jeg tror at dette kommer til å vedvare I hvert fall Q1 og gjerne hele Q2 også.
Yeah. This is not a 1 week situation, no doubt about it. But again, the market's also different compared to what we saw during the COVID times. But certainly we can't take this too lightly neither. Anyhow, there's also alternatives, and Christopher Bartelsson, you've been awkwardly silent for the past 45 minutes, but it makes sense, right? Because you're not a sea freight expert. However, you are an air freight expert. So this is also why we have you on board. Chris, give us a chime in on what alternatives may we actually have for our customers.
Yes, som ni alla varit på under den rådande situationen, så har vi märkt ett ökat intresse både externt och internt gällande hur vi kan hjälpa våra kunder med alternativa lösningar. Självklart, vi har vårt eget charternätverk med våra egna kontrollerade flighter. Men framförallt det som har vuxit fram, det är våran Sea Air-lösning via Dubai. Med den upp till 60% snabbare och upp till 40% billigare. Där vi ser ett, framförallt ut från Kina, där vi ser då en LCL-FCL-lösning in till Jebel Ali. Där det packas om, görs ordning för flygfrakt och sen flygs in till Europa. När det gäller...
And Chris, what about direct air freight? Because we've seen here recently that the e-commerce market has been booming quite a lot, actually, or especially out of Hong Kong, right? That rates have been elevated or even quite high for quite a period. What is the air freight situation overall, given the situation that we see now with the Middle East?
Med allt det sagt, export ut från Europa och Norden är väldigt stabil, skulle jag säga. Både in till Mellanöstern och Asien. Import från framförallt Asien har återhämtat sig lite från jul, från e-commerce. Raterna har blivit stabilare. Vi kommer sannolikt inte se hur allt detta påverkar flygfrakten förrän i slutet av januari. Det vi däremot vet, som varje år sker, det är det kinesiska nyåret. Det kommer bli tajt med plats 1 till 2 veckor innan. Raterna kommer gå upp. Så ser man redan nu en störning i sitt flöde, så skulle jag rekommendera att man sträcker ut en hand till sin DSV-kontakt och frågar hur kan vi hjälpa? För det kommer bli tajt, och har man som sagt redan gods som man vet är försenat, vänta inte in i sista sekund, utan det är därför vi är här. Fråga redan nu, hur kan ni hjälpa oss?
Ja.
Sen får man ju också ta i beaktning, som jag lärde Hedin igår, att det är ju en kapacitetsskillnad på ett containerfartyg kontra en freighter. En freighter är ungefär 5 stycken 20-fots TUs. Ja. Så där får man lite uppfattningen hur stor kapacitetsskillnad det är på flyg kontra en båt. Det är väldigt viktigt att ta i beaktning.
What about the sustainability impact that we see on the sea air or air sea solution, Chris? Any comments on this particular subject for now? If it's okay if you can't answer it.
Nej.
Oh.
Det är svårt att säga samtidigt, självklart. Ingen vill ju flyga, aldrig, för att det är som det är.
Ja.
Men du har ju en bättre sustainability på en CR-lösning än på en ren flyglösning.
Rigtigt, og den er dårligere, eller hvad kalder man det, sämre end en ren søfragt, og det giver selvfølgelig mening det. Men okay, vi holder det til det. Chris, what about DSV Sirius Express? Any comments on this particular product, also an alternative product that might be relevant to add a few comments upon?
Denna får jag tyvärr säga att jag inte har.
Jeg kan ta en liten kjapp runde om dette. Vi har jo selvfølgelig flere alternative løsninger, og DSV Sirius Express var jo noe vi satt opp under covid-tiden. Dette vil jo dekke større deler av Vietnam, Bangkok etc. Så her finnes det mange muligheter for å spørre oss. Men det som egentlig vi er jo fortsatt Suez stengt, så vi får en lengre transittid enn vi hadde tidligere. Men da tar vi siste uthavn fra Asia og første ankomsthavn i Europa. Tar det på container, losser om containeren i Algiers og trekker det til destinasjonen som dere ønsker godset. Så dere ser av prestasjonen her, så jo transittiden forholdsvis lang hvis vi sammenligner med normal transittid, men du vil spare en 10 dager, røftlig 10-12 dager i vanlig sjøfrakt.
And what is important here also, if we actually expect the ripple effect with having, the bigger, European ports being affected one way or the other, you will somewhat, you will miss out on that luckily, right? Because you discharge in Algeciras, so southern parts of Spain. That's also a topic of relevance to add here.
Det helt riktig, Morten.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, any last remarks on this? Is not a promoting webinar, but at least these are alternative products that might be relevant anyhow. But any remaining comments, Preben?
Jeg vil avslutte. Vi har mange forskjellige løsninger som kan gjøres. Jeg anbefaler kundene å ta kontakt med sin kontaktperson i DSV, så kan vi skreddersy løsninger etter behovet derfra. For det finnes mange forskjellige løsninger som håndterer til forskjellig pris.
Takk.
Och Algeciras Express nyttjas ju både import och export också.
Very, very good. All right, we're going to move onwards to a few questions. Time is certainly coming to an end, at least if you've planned for the 45 minutes that we had. But there's been so many questions coming in here. Peter, when it comes to the Suez, we still see some commercial ships going into Suez. Are any of these from the bigger liners or bigger carriers, or is this more like niche players?
Both. And on top of that, of course, we see all other kinds of ships also going through the area with the elevated risk it still presents. But in terms of container shipping, mostly the European carriers have been outspoken about their actions. Right now we have Maersk and Hapag pausing all transits through the area, but we do also see MSC, COSCO, OOCL, some of the other, say, top 10 carriers going out saying that case by case, we let ships through. I think I alluded to in my opening that approximately 4 out of 5 ships go south of Africa, with still a lot of ships going through the Red Sea. And I guess during times like this, and if you have products that are time sensitive, you could probably get in touch with some of the carriers directly that will let your cargo through the Red Sea if you are really on a short leash in terms of timing. But definitely the niche carriers and those that have no strings attached to Israel or only service local ports in the Red Sea area, stuff like that. It seems almost as business as usual for those guys, but obviously this is an opportunity also for niche carriers to show that they can handle your cargo when some of the big, more profile carriers go round.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, very, very good. Well, in the respect of time, we've said 45 minutes and we've passed that certain deadline, but there has been additional questions coming in and we've tried to cover a lot through the presentation. We will share the recordings, right, Karin?
Yes.
I have Karin here in the background. She's the superstar, actually making sure that this is working accordingly. So the recording will be distributed, so you can share that internally with your colleagues if you need to do that. And we will also try to answer all the questions coming back directly to them who have addressed that either prior or during the webinar. The ones being anonymous, it's going to be difficult, but we've tried to cover as many as we can. But you can always link up with either Seneta. I have the contact details as the final part. You can always reach out, or your direct link to any DSV employees, I am sure. If not, you can reach out to me. We also have a really exciting webinar concerning China's future global economy role or economic role coming up here on Jan 31, and there will be another webinar together with Seneta popping up in March, I believe, but that date in particular will be announced later. Peter, I've inserted your email. I hope that is okay, despite that I didn't add on beforehand. And yeah, I think that was it for now, guys. Please allow me also to thank you, Chris and Preben, for you chipping in. And for everybody viewing in and listening in, thank you so much. Again, reach out if there's anything either to me directly, Peter, or your direct contact within DSV. That was it for now. We'll keep in touch. Stay tuned. We will make sure to distribute whatever info that might be relevant for you guys. Until then, have a nice day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Tackar.
Thank you for your kind attention.
Hej.
Thank you.